Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to a beautiful Sunday here at Movies TV Mad, and a warm welcome to Sunday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. My platform, Movies TV Mad, isn't an echo chamber for James Gunn stans or Zack Snyder stans or any other stans. You know me by now. And if you don't know me, and if you're new, please subscribe. Now, James Gunn stans and Zack Snyder stans are both welcome to watch the videos. You're welcome to the Movies TV Mad family. But I'm a straight talker, but I try to talk with balance and logic as well. So, in terms of Zack Snyder and James Gunn's DC, we are going to have a balanced discussion about both. But James Gunn stans, you are not going to like what I say about him. And Zack Snyder fans, it may be time to get really excited and get those "The Snyderverse has been restored" t-shirts ready. So let's go. I am very concerned at a potential James Gunn SJW DC Universe. But because I'm a huge Superman fan and Superman is my favourite fictional character, I'm more concerned about James Gunn potentially giving us an SJW Superman. James Gunn has a history in his stories on writing about straight white males that are bad fathers. So let's look at his history. In Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, he makes Ego the Living Planet a bad dad, a guy who murders Peter Quill's mum, seduces her, murders her, and ends up being a bad guy. In Peacemaker, Robert Patrick plays Peacemaker's father. Now, I like Peacemaker. It's well written, well directed. The characterizations are brilliant. But again, Robert Patrick, who is Peacemaker's dad, is a angry straight white male. He's a racist, he's a murderer, and he wants to kill his own son. So we have two examples here of a progressive writer-director spreading propaganda about straight white males being bad dads, and this concerns me for James Gunn's work on Superman. Because if this is what he thinks about straight white men as dads, what chance does Jor-El and Jonathan Kent have in his Superman movie? Not very much. I would be very concerned if I was Jor-El in his story. Now, Smallville's interesting if we look at the Smallville TV show because there's a balance to it. So Jor-El is a passive-aggressive, tough-love dad. He's teaching Clark these harsh lessons, these trials, to help him be more ready when he becomes Superman. Now, Jonathan Kent is a very, he's a very gentle but a traditional man. I wouldn't expect Jonathan Kent to be as traditional in James Gunn's universe, and I'm sure there will be a Jonathan Kent in James Gunn's universe. And in Smallville, we see the Kent farm having an American flag hanging outside it. I don't think that's going to happen either, because progressives don't agree with nationalism and being proud of the country you are from. To them, that is the same thing as being a bigot. Of course, you and I are sane. Well, I'm insane, but I'm not that fucking insane, right? And this is what's happened. The industry has been taken over by less talented extreme left extremists, SJWs. And James Gunn is one of them. He is a talented writer-director, but he isn't Francis Ford fucking Coppola. He isn't Martin Scorsese. And if he was working in the 80s, he would be writing and directing Looney Tunes cartoons, and that would be the level of what James Gunn would be working on. Now, generally, I don't have any hate for James Gunn. This is not about hate. This is about my concerns as a DC fan and the way this world we're living in is going. I'm not a political person. I don't support the left. I don't support the right. I think politics is a shit way to run our world. And I don't want this channel to become a fucking political channel with political narratives. But these extremists have sucked us in. They're dividing blacks and whites, gays and straights, putting all of these people in boxes and dividing us all. When I went to see the movie Demolition Man, I never thought for one moment I would wake up as a 50-year-old man and feel like John Spartan, aka Sly Stallone, where I didn't know what the free seashells were. This is the world we live in today. Ah, you said that. You'll find 15 credits. Ah, you said that. You'll find another 15 credits. We're living in the fucking Demolition Man world, and these SJWs have brought this beautiful fantasy, fantastic entertainment industry as it once was to that fucking level. And that's my analogy. We are now all fucking John Spartan, not knowing what the free seashells are. And this is what these crazy people are doing. I've given you 2 examples of James Gunn hating on straight white males as fathers. Now, what's interesting about the male progressives and their hatred for their own gender, they seem to opt out of the toxic masculinity box because they're talking against us. But if you're a straight white male and you're talking badly and spreading bad propaganda against your very own people, you're just as bad. If you believe we're that bad, you're just as bad as well. But let's get back to the subject at hand. I also believe that James Gunn won't cast a white Clark Kent. I believe we may get a Latino Superman or an African-American actor as Superman. And if we don't get that, I would expect Jonathan and Martha Kent to either be Latino or African-American. I'm more comfortable with an inclusive hiring of actors playing Jonathan and Martha than I am of an African-American Superman. I could probably live with a Latino Superman. If I'm being honest, that could kind of work for me. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this. So I have concerns about James Gunn and what he's going to do to DC Universe. You know, on the other hand, I'm kind of excited about what he's going to do because he used to work on the MCU in the early days, in the good old days. But things have changed, and there's no question he is an SJW, and if you look at some of the elements of Peacemaker, it's all there to be seen. If you want proof of what I'm talking about, go back and rewatch Peacemaker. And if you haven't seen Peacemaker before, go back and check it out. I love Peacemaker. I enjoyed it. I think James Gunn is very, very talented. As I say, I don't think he's one of the greatest writer-directors in the world, but he's okay. He's good at what he does, but he's always spreading that bad dad, bad man propaganda. In fact, in Peacemaker and Bloodsport, he admits it on the Suicide Squad commentary, director's commentary, that they are representing toxic masculinity. Yes, here we go again. We're not representing starving children and starving families struggling to pay their bills. No, we're talking about toxic masculinity, one of the most unimportant topics in the world. But these people have made it trend #1. And this is the kind of fucking insane world we live in. So that is the side of the political pool that James Gunn is on. So I think it's kind of frightening and also exciting at the same time, because you got this guy who did a brilliant first Guardians movie. His second Guardians movie was okay, but the bad dad thing started with him then. So we've got to be very wary of what this man is going to do at DC. But will Zaslav allow him to go all SJW, considering he shelved Batgirl? But what were the motivations for shelving Batgirl? A desperation of money, of a tax write-off. It was like some weakling had to be sacrificed. Batgirl probably had the least potential of making money, so that's the one that was sacrificed. So we're going to find out very quickly what kind of CEO David Zaslav is, if he's really going to allow James Gunn to go all SJW. And these are really my concerns with James Gunn doing DC Universe, because what DC doesn't need is to divide the fandom yet again. There's now a Joker comic book out, or a comic story, where he's a pregnant man. Yes, this is the level of what these people are now doing. It's insane, it's comical, it's frightening, it's hilarious. We live in John Spartan's world. We are now all John Spartan. Now, moving away from James Gunn and my fears of him turning DC Universe and Superman into an SJW nightmare apocalypse, let's talk about this hashtag. Sell the Snyderverse to Netflix. That's the thing that Snyderverse fans are hashtagging on Twitter right now. I am totally supportive on this hashtag because this is a better way of pushing your message, guys and girls, than calling James Gunn, bad names and going boring on about, the historical tweets. I've spoken about the historical tweets on here. They're not good. I can't make any excuses for those historical tweets. They're disgusting. But going on about them doesn't help your cause, and it just makes you look toxic rather than him. But pushing a hashtag of trying to convince WB and Zaslav to lease out Zack Snyder's portion of DC to Netflix so he can complete his Snyderverse DC story is a fucking fabulous idea, and I support it. But what are the possibilities of this actually working? Well, there's a huge possibility of this happening, but why, Mick? Why would they do this? Because they're trying to raise $3 billion because this is a company in huge debt because of prior leaderships and because of AT&T's obsession with launching a very expensive streaming service in HBO Max that hasn't even ever turned a profit. It's a disaster, and that's why they're cancelling stuff and shelving stuff off the platform. They're planning to lease a lot of the shit they're cancelling to other platforms. It's like Westworld has been cancelled. It won't get its final season, and all the episodes are being removed from the platform because they're probably going to lease them out to Netflix or Amazon Prime or Apple TV or one of these things. So they're trying to find ways of raising money. This is good news for this hashtag because there could be a lot of money in it for Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery to lease out DC to Netflix so Zack can finish his arc. But it could get even better than that if you're a Henry Cavill Superman fan. Imagine Netflix producing alongside Zack Snyder and his production company a Man of Steel sequel. A Man of Steel 2 on Netflix exclusively. Imagine that. A streaming service that is available in most territories all over the world, unlike HBO Max and Disney Plus and things like BBC iPlayer. I live in Cyprus. These things are important to me. I absolutely am so supportive of this, and I really want this to happen, and I think there is a huge possibility of it happening. Now, there have been unfounded rumours of Deborah Snyder being in negotiations with David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, about this very situation. Of course, Netflix would need to be involved in those talks. I've asked my sources. I can't clarify if this is a real thing, but I've noticed on my topics and my trends on Twitter, this is trending. That hashtag, sell the Snyderverse to Netflix. Now, they can't sell the Snyderverse to anyone, but what they could, because it's not a thing you can sell, but what you can do, you can lease out the DC trademark to Netflix just to work on Zack Snyder DC. So Zack can finish his arc, but you could also get a potential Man of Steel sequel with this deal. And this is why I keep on hinting on the internet, it's very difficult to destroy, get rid of, kill Henry Cavill as Superman. So I think this is a really good hashtag. This is a really good idea, and I think there is a base of hope and realism towards this hashtag. And if I were you guys and girls, keep on pushing the hashtag every day. Do events, do a huge event. Now, I'm not sure how much the trends are, if they're in their thousands or if we're going really, really high on this, but we really need to push this. Forget everything else, right? Forget the fire James Gunn thing, right? Because DC and, WB in terms of the Snyderverse will never mix. It will never happen. You're not going to, I believe getting the Snyderverse on Netflix is the only realistic way. Even if you fire James Gunn, they're not bringing Zack Snyder back because they want to make $1 billion a movie. They want a franchise. They want a popcorn chomping franchise. These are not Zack Snyder's strengths, and this is not the premise that Zack Snyder wants to work in. And you and me as Zack Snyder fans know what Zack wants to do. He wants to make films for us, his fans, and he doesn't give a shit about the general audience. We already know that because he's told us this at SnyderCon and on, different channels he's had interviews on as well. So I think the most realistic way to restore the Snyderverse is via getting the Snyderverse on Netflix. And I think this absolutely could happen. But we have to keep on pushing that trend. I love the DCEU Snyderverse. I think Man of Steel, BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice League are beautiful, compelling movies. They're unique. And these movies are aging so well and will continue to age so well. So I think we can get the Snyderverse of DC on Netflix, and we need to keep pushing that. This has been Sunday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wife. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection, and I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen!